Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت. آمين. Okay, Alhamdulillah, on Friday we were able to cover from basically Surah Alaq until the end of Surah Al-Takathur. So we're starting from Surah Al-Asr today. Nothing major, except for maybe the discussion that we had about the night of power, if that's the accurate translation or not. It does seem like saying the night of glory or the night of honor or something like that would be a bit more accurate. However, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say the night of power. It could be implied, it could be understood. But yeah, more of a literal translation that the Mufassirun mentions of Sharaf would be more of a glory and honor. And the other major discussion that we had was our belief in the Mizan. We read from the Jawhara of Judi. For more details, I'm sure we could find it in Surah Al-A'raf, ayah number 6, 7, 8 or something. Regarding our belief in the Mizan, we covered that. And for more details, again, we could also see like Aqidat Tahawiyah and stuff. I'm sure there's some information over there as well. So beginning from Surah Al-Asr. One sec. First bullet point is the first bullet point is okay, ayah number one, what are the different opinions and what is preferred? Oh, by the way, inshallah, we could finish this up today, inshallah, at least get very close to it. And then the miscellaneous discussions, like the sihr and black magic and all that stuff, we'll probably just have a separate session for that. Remind me towards maybe the end where we could talk about some of the. I think it was actually the two of you that had questions that weren't necessarily on the doc, but they sprouted out from it about the why do educated people fall into Salafism and are madhabs a manifestation of sectarianism. Inshallah, maybe towards the end we can discuss those. Inshallah. Okay. So question number one. What are the different opinions regarding ayah number one of Surah Asr wal Asri, and what is the preferred opinion? You guys can shout it out. There you go. There were three different opinions that. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. The time of Asr, yani, like the actual Salah timing. Yeah, so that was the first one he mentions here. Well, Asr fi thalathatu aqwal. That there's three different opinions. The first is that it's like the actual prayer of Asr namaz. The second is that it's that timing, that specific timing of the day. And then the third is that Asr could mean time in general, like time as a whole, not restricted to, just like this, the concept of time. And he doesn't seem like he mentions what is the preferred opinion. The first one that he does mention is that al-awwal, he says it's Salatul Asr. The third is Zaman, it's time as a whole. Let's see if Mufti Shafi says anything. Wal Asr. Yes, Mufti Shafi says that it is time itself. So the third opinion that Ibn Juzay mentions. He doesn't specify saying the Asr is like Salatul Asr or like that specific portion of the day. He says that it is time itself. Okay. That was the first question. The second question is where'd it go? Why is the final word nakira? Okay, this is something that I kind of mentioned in passing, so it might be tough. But basically, in the ayah number two, inna insana lafi khusrin. What is the benefit of khusrin? Why not just say lafil khusr, like alif lam khusr? As we had mentioned, that there's different types of alif lams. Maybe this is where I mentioned it might have been another place, but basically alif lam could have different functions. Sometimes it could be like the we know very commonly is that it's referring to a specific individual. Sometimes it could be for as we could see here actually, innal insana. That alif lam is for jins, and it's referring to all of mankind. So it's not just man or a man or anyone, it's alif lam for the entire genus of that species. So that's one another function. There's other different other functions of the alif lam that are mentioned in the books of Nahu and whatnot that I don't really think I need to mention here. But the alif lam can have different functions. It doesn't always have to be just like that one alif lam that we kind of learn when we're in beginners studying Arabic. لفي خسر. Now the tanween of the kasratain and the ra of khusrin also has tanween, and the nakira nis can also have different functions. The function that it plays over here is to show. Anyone remember? التنوين للتعظيم. تنوين للتعظيم, to show the greatness of the thing, like not the greatness as in like how awesome and how amazing it is. Yeah, I mean like the quantity, like the quantity of this thing is so much. So إن الإنسان لفي خسر, it would be appropriate to translate it as indeed mankind is in a great loss, is in a huge loss, a ginormous loss, a ginormous loss. Yeah, okay. So that would, and that ginormous or huge or whatever that quality is that you're putting for the word loss would be coming from this tanween over here. So that was the second bullet point. And the third last one is what is the significance and the relationship between al-haq and as-sabr? إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. Okay, those people who believe and do good deeds. That makes sense. It comes up multiple times throughout the Quran. And then Allah Ta'ala says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And they encourage each other to abide by the truth, to follow the truth, to preach the truth, and they encourage each other and they motivate each other in practicing patience. The relationship between haqq and sabr. I think this was what Mufti. I'm sure this is probably like some famous thing that's mentioned regarding this ayah. But I remember I think Mufti's Minhaj had mentioned this one. Well, he said that um, once a person starts to give da'wah to the haqq, once a person starts to, like, if a person's just believes in Allah Ta'ala, like let's say, like some individual, a young man decides to start practicing his religion, and his whole family is non-religious. If he becomes, like he does, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, he decides to become start praying 5 times a day, and just be nicer to people. He starts to give charity and stuff. People will, no one's gonna look down on that. Most of the time, at least, most people will not, mock him, or no one's gonna say anything. But once what tawasaw bil haqqi starts to happen, once that individual starts to, talk to other people about deen in the family, once that individual starts to like, you know, try to encourage other people to do khair, try to encourage other people to stop sinning, stop doing certain sins, and start doing certain good deeds, that's when the backlash starts. We even see that during the lifetime of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was known as as-Sadiq al-Amin, right? He was respected, he was loved, he was looked up to, he was everything, XYZ, right? Like a model citizen, and people knew him to also be a monotheist, and he used to worship Allah Ta'ala alone, but they didn't give him any like backlash for that. They're like, okay, he could do him. That was pretty much the attitude. But once the da'wah started, once he received his nubuwa, that's when they started calling Sadiq al-Amin. They started calling him Majnoon. They started calling him Sahir, Kahin, all these sorts of different names. So once a person starts practicing very, very outwardly, and they start preaching towards the haqq, that's when they also need to, what they also be sabr. They also need to be holding on to sabr as well. Sabr, as we had mentioned, there is a few different types of sabr. Sabr was sabr ala ta'a, that a person has to have like a certain discipline. Discipline is also like a sort of patience, right? They have to have a certain discipline in continuously performing good deeds. A person can't just be like, pray 5 times a day for like 2, 3 days and then just gas out. Like although that may happen, you have to find it within yourself to be able to, I gotta pray my fara'id at the very least, right? Or and then sabr. Um, Anil ma'asiyah, I believe that's the term, is that a person has to, again, discipline, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, that a person has to be able to have like restraint and self-control, which again, it's like a type of sabr, like a branch of sabr, from staying away from ma'asiyah, from staying away from sin. Um, and sabr عند البلاء. I think this is normally what we associate with sabr. That anytime like a musibat or something difficult happens, a calamity befalls a person, then they have to remain patient. They have to not say anything inappropriate or say anything say anything inappropriate against Allah Ta'ala, or a person just has to bear through it and overcome it in the right way. So those are the three things: sabr ala ta'a, sabr anil ma'siyah, sabr عند البلاء. Okay, that wasn't even the bullet points, so I don't know where I started going off over there. There was one more thing actually that I had, again, not part of the bullet points, but I did want to mention this. Where'd it go? If I remember correctly, it was somewhere over here. This is pretty interesting. Um, IT has stated in one of his monographs that there are normally two factors that restrain a person from faith and righteous deeds. The first cause is some doubts about the true faith. When such doubts arise in the mind of people, it destroys their faith and leaves them confused and confounded. As a result, it adversely affects their righteous deeds. The second cause is the selfish desires that stop man from doing good and involve him in evil deeds. In this situation, he theoretically believes that he should do good and abstain from sins, but his selfish desires lead him to stray from the right path. I think actually I talked about this. Mufti, this is one of from my experience, Mufti Saab's one of his go-to talks, which is it's a very good talk. Obviously, he doesn't use the same material over and over again. It's just around these two things. But he talks a lot about the shahawat and the shubuhat and shahawat, shubuhat and shahawat. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this bayan before. No, so a person, they could be a bad Muslim. No, I mean I'm not putting. I'm being a little too PC right now. They could be a bad Muslim, quite frankly, due to two things. Either due to one of two things or a combination of them. Either that their iman is lacking or their amal is lacking. Like their iman is lacking, their Islam is lacking. Either like their actual faith and the belief in their faith is lacking, or just their ability to their to actually perform and act upon what they know that they should be doing. If that makes sense. So we have the shahawat and shubuhat. The shubuhat. Let's start with that. The shubuhat is basically the intellectual doubts and the like a person just doesn't have like a person has sort of nagging questions that just make it very difficult for them to submit themselves to the Sharia, to Allah Ta'ala and stuff. A person has like intellectual questions regarding the existence of God or about the legitimacy, about the finality of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's prophethood, or they're just about things like the authenticity of hadith and stuff like that, actual intellectual doubts, which may cause a person to not be a good Muslim. That's what we call the shubuhat. The shahawat, however, as I'm sure you guys could understand from comes from the word shahwa, is although a person is like, um, yeah, like I know Allah Ta'ala exists. I know that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was the final messenger. I don't know he said X, Y, and Z. For example, he said not to drink. He said not to fornicate. It's just I'm a weak individual, and I unfortunately end up falling into these sins. So now, what's the um? Both of them are in a pretty tough spot. Both of those individuals, although one I would argue is worse. But those are both of those are attacks from shaitan is my point. So and they require certain remedies. And so for the shubuhat, which is the intellectual doubts and differences that a person may have, the remedy to that is basically ilm. A person has to gain proper knowledge. A person has to sit down and study with qualified individuals so that they could rectify, they could get their questions answered. They could, resolve any sort of difficulties that they may be having when understanding the Sharia and so on and so forth. That's ilm. As for the shahawat, a person is just although they admit that yeah, Allah Ta'ala is one and he exists, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the last prophet, and we have to believe in him, and no other religion is true, and even if that person is like educated, but he still says, I just have a very hard time staying away from XYZ sin, then the remedy to that would be dhikr. So we have, I don't really go on Jamaat too much, so this is kind of funny, but we have ilm and we have dhikr. We got to put those two together in order to have, to be able to protect yourself, to be able to protect ourselves from both the shahwat and the shubuhat. Okay, where did that stem from? So in this situation, okay. The current verse, yani verse number 3 of Surah Asr, indicates to remove both causes of one's distraction. So he's saying that this verse, ayah number 3, is addressing both the shahawat and the shubuhat. By stressing upon advice of truth, it caters to the first cause. Yani a person should be intellectually convinced that this is the truth, and that it should be removed by reforming others on theoretical and academic level, and by emphasizing on advice of patience. It has taken care of the second cause by enjoining upon the Muslims to advise others to give up the base desires and remain firm against their evil demands. Yani, just to have patience against against sins, and to have patience by basically just making sure that in terms of your amal, in terms of your practice, you're good. And the first, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, is making sure that in your creed and in your belief, you're good. So he puts those two together. Point number, nope, that was it. Surah Al-Humazah. What are the different opinions? What is preferred? I know Ibn Juzay mentions like a whole bunch. So this is going to be, give me a second. So, ويل لكل همزة لمزة هو على الجملة الذي يعيب الناس ويأكل أعراضهم. So this verse is basically in, just to sum it up, is referring to a curse that is being upon the people who are involved in basically backbiting regarding others and destroying their honor. واشتقاقه من الهمز واللمز وصيغة فعل للمبالغة. So hams and lams are like the masdar, and the scale of fu'ala, the like humaza, lumaza, both of those words are on the scale of fu'ala, is for this mubalagha. Is there any word, other words that you guys could think of that's on these scales? Fu'ala. Wait, hold up. Am I tweaking? Give me 1 second. Wait, give me 1 second. Because if I'm right, this might be funny. Ah, all right. Okay, I'm not even gonna mention it to save myself some embarrassment. Okay, anyways. واختلف في الفرق بين الكلمتين. So what is the difference between humaza and lumaza? He mentions one, two, three, four. Okay, four actually. So he says الهمز في الحضور واللمس في الغيبة. That hams, that they're both referring to basically backbiting and or speaking ill about people. So, but he says that hams is in, like, you're saying it to the person's face. You're not even having the courtesy to say it behind their back. Actually, I don't know if that's a courtesy or not. You guys can decide that. Lams fil ghaiba, that a person is actually doing it in their absence, that they're just talking bad about them. So then that's the first opinion. The other opinion is that it's the opposite way, that lams is doing it in their face and hams is doing it behind their back. Al hams bil yadi, the third opinion is that al hams bil yadi wal ayn, that a person is basically making like hand and eye movements and like indications to like while they're in a group of friends, to like, you might point at somebody or something to like so that if your friends look, you could all laugh together or something. And lams is to actually verbalize it. And some say that the fourth opinion is that hams and lams are the same thing. Okay, so those are the four different opinions. Actually, he doesn't even mention what is preferred either. Seems to be a running theme. Maybe I should start checking elsewhere. I don't think Mufti. He says most commentators agree that the word hams, from which is derived the word humaza, means to backbite. So yani fil ghaiba. The word lams, from which the word lumaza means to slander or to deride, that is to speak ill of a person to his face. Interesting. So Mufti Shafi is saying that most commentators take the second opinion. Yani that Lams is saying bad stuff to a person's face, and Hams is backbiting regarding them in their absence. Okay, I like that. Next question was what? Okay, I number six. What is the mubtada? You guys have. I can't say this one. You guys got to go for it. I number six. What is the mubtada? So Allah Taala says, وما أدراك ما الحطمة نار الله الموقدة. I actually really just gave you like half the answer with that question, which is probably wasn't the best way to word that question. I think I worded it for myself without. Okay, وما أدراك ما الحطمة. And what will make you understand what is the حطمة? So that's the question, right? That's the question. نار الله الموقدة. How would you translate نار الله الموقدة? Literally, like just word by word. So you would say like fire of Allah Ta'ala, which is burning. That's not a complete sentence, right? Fire of Allah Ta'ala, which is intensely burning. So I remember this is what Mullah Yusuf had asked us in our third year. Third year? Yeah, that's about right. And he just so embarrassing, man. Some questions he just asks you, and he's just expecting a quick response, and then that question turns into like a 15-minute lecture about what the answer is and all the different like hawala and stuff about that, which is embarrassing. But basically, the answer was that وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ is a question. The answer is هي نار الله الموقدة. It is the fire of Allah Ta'ala, which is burning. Here referring to the hutama. Okay, so like وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ الْحُطَمَةُ نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ. موقدة, sorry. And then we're just putting here there to refer to al-hutama. When we didn't get that, and then he told us the answer, it was pretty embarrassing. Okay, that was Surah, whom is that? Surah Al-Fil, what is the Sababun Nuzul? Okay, I do not want to go through this another time. Are we good on this? We're good on the Sababun Nuzul of Surah Al-Fil? Okay, cool. Unless Arsalan wants another animated, like cartoonish, like presentation of the Sababun Nuzul, I think we could go past that one. Basically, dude tried to build a Kaaba, and then someone defecated in it. He didn't like that. He pulled up, and shots fired. Surah Quraysh. You like that? That was a good one, right? Okay, Surah Quraysh, Ayah 1 and 2. What is being referred to here? What is I talking about? Surah Quraysh. Which one is that? Oh, okay. Surah Quraysh, Ayahs 1 and 2. What is being referred to here? لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف. Oh, okay. Basically referring to the business travels in which the Quraysh would, being people of trade and business and stuff, that they would go and they would go to different parts of they would go out of their peninsula. Well, how would you just say that? Basically, they would travel north and south. They would go south during the winter for the heat, and they would go trade over there during the winter time, and then they would go north during the summertime for the cold. And they would trade over there, and that's what this is referring to. Now, the significance of this, maybe probably what I was intending by the question, is that um, the Arabian Peninsula at the time was a bunch of desert nomad savages who would just absolutely ransack anyone that they set their eyes on, and it's basically like if you're in their sights, you're pretty much a dead man. Okay, so, but because these people were from the Quraysh, even the most barbaric people living in that peninsula would say, "Oh, you guys are the custodians of the Kaaba. We'll let you pass. All right, you can do it. You guys, we'll make sure you. We're not going to steal from you. We're not going to kill you. We're not going to do nothing. You guys are the people who are taking care of the house of the Baytullah. You're taking care of the house of Allah Ta'ala. We're gonna, you guys got a free pass from us." So that was a protection that Allah Ta'ala granted the people who lived in the vicinity of the Kaaba, and that was a blessing that He gave them. So what does He say? this is due to the blessings of Allah Ta'ala. So because of that blessing, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. So you should be worshipping this Lord of this house, and you shouldn't be worshipping some idols that you made from your own hands. You have to, you yourselves admit that it is Allah Ta'ala who granted you this blessing and this security. Ilaf the ilafi refers to their security and their I think he translates it as perennial security, whatever that means. But yani, they had a certain level of VIP access and privileges while they were in while the Quraysh were in the Arabian Peninsula. Anyways, question number ayah one. What is the ayah muta'alliq to? What are the different opinions? What is preferred? Oh, I like this one. What is the ayah muta'alliq to? Okay, so li'ila fi Quraysh. Okay, that's like saying like starting off a story, starting off your your chapter book by saying fit down, right? That's your big line, opening line. That's not a complete sentence. So now obviously Allah Ta'ala is not speaking nonsense, na'udhu billah, right? So what does this mean? This has to be connected to something. This has to be uh there has to be, as we know, the term is muta'alliq, back to something. So what is that? He mentions it right. واختلف في تعلق قوله لإيلاف قريش على ثلاثة أقوال. He mentions three different opinions, and this is really really cool. أحدها أنه متعلق بقوله فليعبدوا. This is basically how I actually just explained it right now. So والمعنى فليعبدوا الله من أجل إيلافهم الرحلتين فإن ذلك نعمة من الله عليهم. That فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف. You should be worshipping uh, the Lord of this house due to the إيلاف قريش. We'd say we could say due to, or by by means of. So you should be worshiping the Lord of this house by means of the security that He granted you throughout your travels during the winter and summer. That would be basically the first opinion, which he mentions here. الثاني أنه متعلق بمحذوف تقديره اعجبوا لإيلاف قريش. Like I was saying, this was an unprecedented VIP access that the Quraysh had, and it was something that was no one else was even close to having that sort of level, that sort of status. So there's a mahdhuf fi'l, a hidden verb here, which is basically i'jabu, be amazed, ponder over this amazing blessing of your ila fi Quraysh. So it's the second opinion basically is that this is متعلق jar majrur is متعلق to this fi'l. Okay, that's the second opinion. Now the question that should pop into your mind is regarding that second opinion is like why a fi'l out of all things? Why not like a ism, or even like more specifically even a masdar maybe you could say? And that's that'd be a good question. Why is that again? I don't think I ever actually. I just have some thoughts running in my head right now, which is why I'm kind of thinking out loud. Maybe we could whatever. الثالث أنه يتعلق بسورة الفيل. Okay, subhanallah. This is actually متعلق back to the previous surah. How did the previous surah end? فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. That Allah Ta'ala says that He made them into like eaten up husks. Yani they were just completely decimated, and they were breaking apart and all that stuff. يعني أنه متعلق يتعلق بسورة الفيل والمعنى أن الله أهلك أصحاب الفيل لإيلاف قريش, which makes a lot of sense. Allah Ta'ala, Allah in Surah Quraysh, which we're on right now, the Ilaf Quraysh, is asserting that the people of Quraysh have a certain level of security, yani they have a certain level of protection in reality that Allah Ta'ala is granting them. Now, what does that have to do with the previous surah? It has everything to do with the previous surah. The previous surah is talking about how some Abraha tried to come with his elephants and attack the people of the Quraysh. He tried to attack the Quraysh, tried to attack their home, their land, and Allah Ta'ala protected them over there too. So this فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ, as to why did Allah Ta'ala decide to make these people, this opposing army, into eaten up husks? It's because لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْش. It's because of this the security and protection that He's continuously granting them. That's the third opinion. Okay, the i'jabu thing. The question is basically, I'm pretty sure there's an ikhtilaf between the Kufis and Basris as to what is the asl, what is like the main thing that everything goes back to. Is it the verb or is it the masdar? Now that's what I was thinking right now. And is there a reason why Ibn Juzay is choosing i'jabu? Is that like a more popular opinion, or is he adopting a certain madhab, and why is he doing that? So that's just what came to mind. I know I was beating around the bush over there. Sorry. But yeah, I don't think I've ever actually read too much into that discussion, but I have came across it. I think it's yeah. Okay, whatever. Yeah, there's madhabs, and you were talking about madhabs creating sectarianism, bro. There's madhabs in Nahu, my guy. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, next question is Surah Al-Ma'un. What are the different opinions of the word ad-din? أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين. Deed, of course, as we normally think of it, is just as well, I guess it will be translated as like a complete religion or complete way of life, or basically like total religion. What I believe the second thing that what deen huna al milla or al jaza. Deen is like I always say Maliki Yawmiddin. Yawmiddin is not day of religion, right? It's the day of judgment. So where does judgment come from? Because deen could also mean jaza, as in like how we say jazakallahu khaira, or jazakallahu khaira is like may Allah Ta'ala give you your compensation. Compensation is basically reckoning. May Allah Ta'ala give you what you deserve. Yani, right? So that's why Mufti Saab, he always says that to, not always, I've heard him say it once. He says, don't ever just say Jazakallah. Make sure to say Jazakallahu khairah. Because perhaps, a person's a'mal, or like someone did something nice for you. So we want to make sure that it's not just, get he jokes that basically it could also be Jazakallahu sharra. You can give you Allah Ta'ala could, if he deems that this good deed that you did for another person, and then they decided to say thank you or jazakallah khairan, then or jazakallah, then it's possible that maybe you did it without ikhlas or something, and your compensation isn't good. It might actually be bad. So he says make sure to specifically say jazakallah khaira. Anyways, not khairan. As we know, in the rules of tajweed, if you're going to be making waqf on fathatain, you say one fatha and you say with a long alif, with the alif afterwards. Like, what's an example? Oh my gosh. Okay, that's embarrassing. Maybe I'll see something. I'm trying to think of something in the end of 30th that everyone will like, remember or recognize. Okay, anyway, so millah could be, okay, so ad-din could either be millah, as we normally translate it, like religion, or it could be jaza, like um, being compensated, whether it's good or bad. Okay, so those are the two different opinions. What was the next question? Next question is, what does it mean to have sahu in regards to salah? Good, okay. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. That final word, sahun, comes from sahu. Sin, ha, wow. Just like how we say sajdatu sahu, the sajda of forgetfulness, or like that a certain action was omitted, for example, or delayed because we were negligent in a certain capacity. So الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون. He says something. I really only put this question because there's one quote right here. الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين يؤخرونها عن وقتها. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked, what does this ayah mean? And he says, the ones who keep on delaying and delaying the salah. Yani they're very lazy to perform it. They perform it at the end of its time or even after its time if they perform it at all. So those individuals are الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون. This is the reason that I put this question up. وقال عطاء بن يسار الحمد لله الذي قال عن صلاتهم ساهون ولم يقل في صلاتهم. Ata ibn Yasar, he says that All praise be to the one that says an salatihim sahun. Those an salatihim sahun translates to in regards to the performance of their salah, they are very negligent. But and he did not say all praise is due to the one who did not say they're negligent during their salah. SubhanAllah. Because then at that point, fi salatihim khashun, fi salatihim sahun. If it was fi salatihim sahun, then at that point it would just apply to everyone. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. And at that point, just who's saved from that? Okay. لا من شاء الله. Okay, what are the different opinions? Okay. Ayah number 7. What does al-ma'un mean literally? What does it mean here and why? Okay, ma'un here, ma'un literally means, Mufti Shafi, I think maybe the English would just be easier. He says, ma'un literally means, he translates it as the small gifts. The small gifts. So, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ, and refers and refuse to give even small gifts. The word ma'un literally means any small or petty thing, and idiomatically refers to small household articles of common use, such as an axe, cooking pot, which at that time, at the time of need, neighbors borrow from one another, like salt or something, sugar, eggs in our I guess in our day, and like a lawnmower, maybe even maybe depends on someone got like a John Deere or something, say, you gotta get insurance on that thing. That thing expensive, bro. Okay. Anyone who is unwilling to lend such small items is morally a very miserly and mean person. However, in the current verse, the word ma'un is taken in the sense of zakah. So that was the first question in the bullet point. What does it literally mean? It refers to these small, small things. What does it have to mean here? Because it just doesn't work. Is that Mufti Saab, as he explains, is that in the current verse, the word ma'un is taken in the sense of zakah, the obligatory 2.5% of a person's entire wealth that they pay every single year. Majority of the commentators, Sayyidina Ali ibn Umar, Hassan al-Basri, Qatada, Dhahak, radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in, and others hold this view. Because why? This وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ is ma'tuf. It's connected to what? It's ayah number 7 is connected to فَوَيْلٌ لِمَنْ يَمْنَعُ فَوَيْلُ الْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. Yani this is a quality of those people who are described of getting wail, of those people who are described of being cursed and wretched and damned. So it's a very serious thing. Now, a person, let me just finish reading first, and then I'll go off on my book lost tangent. The threat of whale, the torment of hell, can only be for a failure to fulfill one's legal obligation. Giving small items to help someone out is simply like a nafil act, and it will not. It's not an obligation at all, and therefore a person will not be punished for it, like with such a severe threat as of weight, which is pretty much what I wanted to say as well. You can only be punished for things which are an obligation. Lending a person like a cup of sugar if they just want to like bake a cake or something, that's not an obligation. It's nice, right? You're not going to also get like sin necessarily for doing something like that, but you're missing out on good deeds. Um, okay, we just stopped that there. So basically, the principle is that you can't have a punishment for something that is non-obligatory. You can have punishment for missing salah, missing fard salah. You can't have punishment for, hey, you didn't pray your awabin, you're going to hell. That's not how it works. You can only have punishment for obligatory things. And giving out small gifts to people or small little household items is not an obligation. Okay, Surah Al-Kawthar. What is the sabab al-nuzul of the surah? Let's just go through this one very quickly, and then we could go through those questions that we've had. Okay. Now forget it. Let's just go to the questions that we had. I'm kind of drained, I'm not gonna lie. Let me just see where we left. Highlight where we left off. I know I'm going really slow. If you're getting upset, I apologize. But yeah, I think we've been at this long enough for you guys to realize that I was never gonna speed up. Where did the highlight go, man? Man, barely got through anything, man. Like, sorry. Okay, here's that. Hopefully the recording didn't stop. Okay, so some of the questions that we had. First things, let's just talk about the money being intrinsically bad. Saving money or using it luxuriously. What does it mean to live comfortably? Is it even a line? What is that line? What are the factors? How to get rid of the social ill that we see in people today? So now, fiqh wise, you could own, and I don't know why I didn't say this, but you can own however much money you want. Okay, that's that in terms of the fiqh. Yes, it's possible that at a certain point, if I remember correctly, there was like a masala, like if a person, well, I'm not going to say this actually, but there is a, of course, now there's also, with great power comes great responsibility. If you're getting that much money, then I don't want to say that fiqh wise you'll be obligated, but of course, a person should be inclined to giving to back to others and helping out the poor and needy and so on and so forth. So fiqh wise, you can own as much money as you want. The problem is this is where, and it makes sense. It's actually right there in the ayah, which I have no idea why we were struggling so much on this. Maybe I just couldn't remember the entire discussion that we were having when I was thinking about this some more and talking to people. Is that وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا, right? That's the verse that those individuals have an excessive love for wealth. What's being blamed is the love that has seeped into the heart, which is basically a manifestation, and it's like a byproduct of the hubb dunya, about this infatuation that people have with the material. That's what's being blamed. The fact that they have wealth is not what's being blamed. So a person could have as much money as they want. Now, when we start talking about comfortability, comfortability and stuff like that, that again, as we said, is very, very relative. And even determining things like israf, what would be considered wasteful, is also, when speaking with this mufti and this great alim whose name I will not mention because I don't think he'll appreciate it. But I got y'all after, inshallah, after the recordings that I got you. Basically, this individual is saying that israf too is also relative. Israf being like wastefulness. A person only has like $10,000 to their name, yet they're taking out like $100,000 loan just so they could pay, like, have like a fancy wedding for their daughter or something. Like that's completely bogus. Whereas if a person is like a straight up billionaire and they're spending $10 million, then like that's just like a Tuesday night. So those things also come into play as well. So the main thing is that the hubb dunya and the hubb mal, the love of wealth and the love of dunya should not come in a person's heart. Fiqh wise, yeah, a person can own as much, they could buy whatever they want. They could of course, like obviously for men, there's things like gold and stuff that you're not allowed to. You can't use like gold, silverware, and stuff like that. So that would be considered sinful. But anything that there isn't, like, maybe we could start off with this. Anything that there isn't explicit, or anything that the scholars haven't deemed impermissible, then pretty much everything else is not off limits. You could do whatever else you want. Did that help? I hope that verified something. Of course, money isn't intrinsically bad. The main thing is that the hubb dunya. Go ahead, Arsalan. Dude, man, there's even ikhtilaf on this too. Okay, we normally we think that hey, it's good for a person to not have. Wait, sorry. Maybe could you just say your question one more time? I want to make sure I. Okay, okay. So maybe the solution to that is you could and this is, I think, we could, even though we don't have trillions and billions of dollars, we could still use this principle. If there's no benefit in your dunya or your akhirah, then yeah, that's probably a waste. That goes for your time as well. Watching Netflix is like, you could a person might argue, hey, I'm getting benefit in my dunya because I'm like resting my body. You could use your time even more efficiently than that. You could watch something else. You could do something else. You could spend time with your family or whatnot. Like, you could always but I would say that's probably like the general principle, is that if there's no benefit in your dunya or your akhirah, then it's gonna be it's probably not a good idea. What was I gonna say though? Yeah, this the discussion about when we normally think that the Sufis are poor and stuff. Dude, I don't know, man. Um, that's obviously we've heard like a lot of stories of the Sufia who are like that, but some I've been reading Bajuri even mentions that like, yo, it's better for a person to be independent and be able to take care of themselves than to be relying on others. And he's talking about that specifically in the sense of like you should have wealth and stuff. Obviously, that's a huge discussion too about you know these different levels of tawakkul and that people have and how Allah Taala takes care of certain individuals and whatnot. But yeah, that's an interesting discussion too. If a person is having wealth for the sake of independence and not being like needy upon other people, that itself is a praiseworthy intention, right? Person's having wealth for for the sense of just don't you don't want to be you want to have a certain sense of istighna and independence of and not be like a burdensome or bothersome to other people. That's a praiseworthy intention. That's a rewarding intention even. So, any other questions on this one about I think because probably do have more questions. It's just that we're not like deep in that like the middle of the conversation that we were having before. So that's probably yeah. Go ahead, Thoban. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think hopefully you told him. Hopefully you guys had a place to stay, man. Okay, there's actually a hadith that fits perfectly with this situation. There was a man who came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he had his camel. So he asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Should I tie it, or should I just yeah should I tie it, or should I just rely upon Allah Ta'ala? Yani, should I like tie it so that it doesn't run away and that when I come back, like I'm going about to go to the marketplace for like 30 minutes, half 1 hour, whatever. And when I come back, I'll need to be able to, get back to my camel and stuff. And should I tie it to this tree or should I just leave it? Should I just have tawakkul? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "I'qilha wa tawakkal ala Allah." I believe that's the wording. Basically, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told him, you adopting the means is not contrary to tawakkul. The person should so he told this individual, make sure to tie your camel, and then you could also have tawakkul on Allah Ta'ala. So this person is basically they're adopting the means and they understand that it's still not even the means that is going to guarantee a certain outcome. Only Allah Ta'ala is able to do that. So although I am tying my camel or although I am booking my hotel, it's still Allah Ta'ala who's going to be taking me every step of the journey. If He wants something to change, He could change it immediately. If He wants it to stay the same and He wants what I'm expecting to happen, He could also make that happen. But everything, like, for a person to adopt means is not contrary to tawakkul, if that makes sense. If that answered the question, even. Where's no problem. Uh, yeah. It's like, yep. أعقلها وأتوكل أو أطلقها وأتوكل. Should I tie it and rely upon Allah, or should I just leave it loose and rely upon Allah? He said, "اعقلها وتوكل." Then tie it and rely upon Allah Ta'ala. Okay, the second question was, why do educated people fall into Salafism and do it and believe it to be academically correct? So this individual, Hazrat Mufti Saab, Damat Barakatuhu, who shall not be named, except in like the next 3 minutes, he says that it's because it's very easy and superficial. It's a very easy outlook to have. Basically, it's very easy to just say, "Hey, let's follow the hadith. Let's just take the zahir of the hadith, and we're not going to think about it a second more. We'll just take it, and we're not going to see if there's anything that might be." contrary to this. We're not going to see if there's any differences that the Sahaba had regarding this. Let's just take what Bukhari. Like, how easy is it to just be like, hey, we're not going to do any interpretation of the Quran, and we're just going to take everything that Bukhari says. That's my whole Islam. Bang, that's it. Like, bro, that sounds like the life, bro. Everyone's becoming a alim left and right at that point, right? It's very easy to just fall into that. And then on top of that, there's the emotional, psychological side of it that I'm sure you could tell me about better, Arsalan. But you fall into this thing, and then there's like a whole movement behind it. There's like a cult mentality almost, and then it just builds and builds and builds, and then that's how you get these fanatics of not just Salafis, and I don't mean to just like call them out specifically, but like any group, really, if that happens. Any more uh anything else that you wanted to ask about this? I do think, yeah, that does make sense. The fact that it is very like easy and like superficial, and it doesn't require too much work. Like the only way to kind of fall out of this would be to like deeply and seriously study the material. So if I remember, I was just like looking at one of these book lists for these bookstores basically, where they ship internationally and whatnot. And then like one of his sections, like you have like a whole, he'll list all the Aqidah books, all the tafsir books, all the Quran, like the ulum al Quran books, the Tajweed books. And he has like a section specifically Rad al Wahhabiyya wa Salafiyya, the books that are refuting the Salafis and the Wahhabis and like all their things. So it's like, if you look into him, if you look into the methodologies more, and the person wants to like really, really like critique their um, belief and their worldview and their understanding. Like it's a difficult task. It's very scary almost too, because basically like, you're gonna have to be starting from scratch. You're gonna be basically the whole world falls apart around you. So I think maybe that's why people kind of get really intoxicated with certain groups and movements. Yes. Do you have any other questions regarding that? Okay. And we had in the Deoband discussion, right? I didn't write this one down, but I'll just say it second to last discussion that we could have is a person who is non. You could have like a Maturidi Hanafi that's living in like Syria, and then he hears that there's this group called Deoband, and he's like, hey, are these guys Muslims, or are they just some like random Hindu Muslim group hybrid that's just bakwas or something? All you'd have to prove to him is that, hey, yeah, he actually follows, the same Aqidah scholars that you follow, of Taftazani and Jurjani, all these guys, and whoever else, E.G. Great. Sabuni and Nasafis and all these guys, right? Okay, so all those Aqidah scholars, he's like, okay, good. So as long as it seems like their belief is good, hopefully they're not just doing any weird bidat and practices. And then you just tell them, yeah, they're actually strict Hanafis. That individual who's like in Yemen or Syria or whatever, who's a strict Hanafi, he's also gonna be, okay, yeah, it seems like they're Muslims, great. Unless there's some other some other like fine details that we need to discuss, then that's a whole separate topic. As for someone who's outside of that, someone who's like a Shi'i, or as like a hardcore Salafi or something like that, at that point it becomes you have to go right back to first principles, which is, how would you define what Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is? Because that's the main thing, right? The main thing is first the Aqidah stuff, and then the second thing is um, fiqh and practice stuff. Because if this is messed up, it can lead to kufr. If this is messed up, it could lead to bid'ah. Which is, I'm not like saying that like it's a light thing, but it's definitely less than kufr, right? How would you talk to like a Salafi, like a hardcore Salafi person regarding what is proper belief? Well, me and a Salafi brother will disagree as to what does Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah means. Me and him will disagree as to what does it mean for a person to be following Sunni Islam. So you'd have to go back, you'd have to prove it historically, you'd have to prove it through even like the actual like the kalam and the logical and dialectic arguments and the discourse that has taken place. Like you actually have to just prove that, hey, these are the issues that we're deferring on. One of the main things being like a ta'wil and tafwid, as we had discussed earlier, that I think came up somewhere. Where did it come up? وَجِيءَ يَوْمَ وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا يَدُ اللَّهِ, all these sorts of different things. Like, what do those mean? So then you have to just go back to first principles and argue those points. And I doubt you'll be able to change any Salafi's mind. Just like how you're not going to change a Deobandhi's mind. That I think that's fair enough to say. I don't think I'm being okay. Yeah, like at that point, it's just what do you believe to be Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and that's where the difference is gonna be, and that's where the disunity is going to be. Okay, are madhabs a manifestation of sectarianism? So, like you said, Thoban, I believe you had asked this one about, people saying that, hey, Qadianis are, it's cool, man. Like, they're calling themselves Muslim. Who am I to judge? Hell no, right? That doesn't fly. If a person's having like major i'tiqadi stuff, that's why, it's necessary to do takfir. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when the false prophets came up, did he say, "Ooh, I got homies now"? Like, no, that's not what happened, right? He went to war with them. He went to war with them. Musaylimatul Kadhab and these individuals who claim prophethood and all these whoever else, like he went toe to toe, sword to sword. If and what is he? What are you gonna accuse him of sectarianism or something? Sorry, I'm tired. It's just I'm saying bagwas right now. I apologize. Please forgive me. But okay, where was I going? Okay, so there is such a thing as being inside the fold and outside the fold. And I would think that that's actually a pretty good example that I just thought of about this Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam going to war against certain people who also claim to be prophets and stuff. Okay, so that's one thing. In terms of practice, now what's interesting is that are madhabs a manifestation of sectarianism? We notice that none of the madhabs are doing. No one does like no Hanafi is like just blatantly doing outright takfir of all the Shafi'is because of their Shafi'i-ness, right? No, like Maliki saying that yes, all the Hanafis are major mubtadi'een. Okay, okay, there might be some discussion over there, but because of some historical stuff, but not Maliki specifically, but the Hanafis have been accused of like a lot of stuff, man. Okay, not pretty. That's okay. No Shafi, like no Shafis like looked at the Malikis and be like, "You're all Muqtadirs." Like we don't like you're the level beneath us. Like that's not there. So what I'm trying to get to is that there is unity. So that I feel like that would just like negate the sectarianism accusation. But that doesn't just sectarianism doesn't necessarily mean there has to be uniformity. Like we could still be have our differences and we could still be united. So sectarianism, we should just go back to this accusation of sectarianism because of differences of opinion. Are we going to say that the Sahaba, who also of course have, and we have it documented, they had multiple different points, they have multiple points of differences. Are we going to accuse them of sectarianism? Is that where we're going? Is that just because a person has differences of opinion in terms of practice, that does not lead to sectarianism? Right? That's because there's differences of opinion and practice that does not lead to sectarianism. And yeah, there's unity. There does not need to be uniformity. So if anyone's who's accusing people of the madhahib being the like a cause of sectarianism and um sorry, what did I just say? Anyone who's accusing the madhahibs of like sectarianism, I think maybe you're taking sectarianism as maybe too literal. Like you would need to define sectarianism. I think Thobani had mentioned the hadith about the 70, 72 something saved sects, and the ummah will divide into X amount of groups, and there's only one that's saved. So like, what does that mean? Like, you could divide up Muslims like left, right, and center. You could say like, hey, there's the Muslims in India, the Indian Muslims, there's the Arabian Muslims. I'm not saying that like they're different, but you could divide up groups however you want them. The what that hadith is referring to is, of course, in terms of belief, right? In terms of proper belief and proper practice. So, no, like I had said, there's no Muslim or there's no like Shafi'i who's doing like takfir of like all Hanafi. There's no Hanafi that's doing takfirs of all Maliki. They're saying that they're all like Mubtadirs or something. Like the sectarianism is like you're playing it. I feel like anyone who would make this accusation is playing it like real fast and loose with that word. Whereas in reality, it's referring to like Qadianis and like the Mujassima, the Qadariya, these people who deny like free will and like major tenets of our deen, if that made sense. I was all over the place. I apologize, Soban, but maybe I gave you a few talking points, inshallah. Yeah. Is there any follow ups you had on that? I would love to. Oh, it's already 9:07 actually. Unless I mean I don't mind staying back. Uh, I'm down. Mhm. Let me see if I could. I feel like I have an idea what the eye might be. Let me just Google it. Yeah, my bad. My Arabic typing isn't so great. Give me a second. Okay, no. Um, all right, all right. I found a ayah which seems to be if it's not the same ayah, I think this wording of that like you mentioned, that dividing up and into different sects and stuff like that. That wording is maybe like common throughout the Quran. So if this is not the exact ayah, I think this might be the wording and maybe like the ayah has been repeated or something. But Allah Ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُنَبِّئُهُم بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. So the translation of which is, where to go? Surely those who have made divisions in their religion and turned into factions, you have nothing to do with them. Their case rests with Allah Ta'ala alone, and then He will tell them what they have been doing. He will inform them of what they have been doing. So that's pretty much their argument. That is that these whoever is bringing this way into or whoever is bringing this argument up to you, then this is pretty much like the ayah that they're using. Yeah. He also over here. I mean, I found a good website, but it seems like can I get back to you on this, Soban, if you don't mind, actually. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, my guy. Inshallah. All right. We'll stop here. I apologize for taking so much time. Inshallah, I'll see you on Friday. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.